The signs of nature, like looking at the stars, the flowering of the randu tree, hearing the voice of the crickets or of other small animals, these signs can no longer be used to know when the rainy season or the dry season should come.
Indigenous peoples across the whole world are experiencing changes in the weather.
Looking back about 15 years, the weather is different. It's not like in the past, when the weather was regular and reliable here. Now it comes irregularly in our place. Our ancestors didn't experience this. Before, the rainy season was the rainy season. The dry season was the dry season. But now it's not like this anymore.
It was better in the past. At least the rains were not strong. However, now the rains are very strong. The rains are very strong and continuous now.
It's too hot now. It's not balanced anymore. Usually after a few months of heat, the rain begins. This drought is going on for too long.
The sun is extremely strong now, like fire. Before, we could work under the sun and finish at whatever time of day. But now the summer and winter are very different, and the sun burns too much.
Normally, during the southern winds, it's hot. Now there's rain. The winds are not the same as before. Suddenly, they've changed. Why are these changes happening? Because the forest is destroyed? We don't know.
Why are these changes happening? The aim of this video is to understand what climate change is and why it is so important to indigenous peoples. More and more, people are talking about climate change. When talking about climate change, carbon is key.
There are two cycles of carbon on this planet. This, trees, plants, all of us. And this is the fossil carbon that come from under the earth.
This represents carbon. Every living thing is made with carbon. Small amounts of carbon can be found in the air or atmosphere in the form of the gas carbon dioxide. Plants need carbon to grow. They get this carbon from the air through the process of photosynthesis. In this process, they release oxygen into the atmosphere. Humans and animals breathe in air. We use the oxygen and breathe out small amounts of carbon dioxide. When we eat plants and animals, their carbon becomes part of our bodies. When wood burns, its stored carbon is released into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. When plants and animals die, some of their carbon becomes part of the soil. Over hundreds of millions of years, layers of plants and animals have formed huge stores of carbon within the earth in the form of gas, oil and coal.
There were forests, there were creatures, and they were deposited in the rocks under the earth, and they in time turned into oil and coal.
When coal, oil and gas are burnt, and when forests are destroyed, carbon dioxide is released into the air. This increase in carbon dioxide is a major cause of the changes we are seeing in the climate.
Large-scale industries have entered the territories of indigenous peoples, such as mining, logging. These are what have caused big impacts to climate change.
With these changes in the seasons, as ordinary people, as indigenous peoples of this place, we know just one thing. This must be happening because the forest, nature itself, is being destroyed. This is the reason these changes are happening. This much we know.
But now, because of the burning of the forests and the burning of gas, even the sky has become damaged.
Because of the effects of climate change, so much around here has been destroyed. The big mining companies and other industries, they are the ones who contribute to climate change.
In reality, the overconsumption of energy and foodstuffs in the industrialized countries is only made possible by the extractive industries in developing nations such as Indonesia.
Over the last 200 years, the world has seen many changes. Villages have grown into cities, with roads, factories. Many forests have also been cut down and burnt. This burning releases huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The forests have been replaced with large-scale plantations for products such as vegetable oil, biofuels and paper pulp. The huge energy and transport demands are powered by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are the stores of ancient carbon deep within the earth: coal, gas and oil. Oil is sucked out of the ground and coal mined to feed the growing energy and transport demands of this industrialized world. The oil, the coal and the burning forests release more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere which surrounds our planet.
When we burn the fossil fuel, we then create the carbon dioxide that pollutes our atmosphere and creates a climate change that we are now concerned about.
Carbon dioxide is the most important contributor to climate change. However, other gases are also released or emitted into the atmosphere. Together, all of these gases are called greenhouse gases. So carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere by industrial processes.
Thousands of cubic meters of ice are melting. That is happening in other countries, right? In the North Pole and the cold areas. But why are we affected here in Lombok and in other tropical places? It is because of the melting of the ice that the sea level rises. So the sea level is rising. And so, according to our principle here, wherever it happens, we are all affected because we all live on the same one earth.
Karena kita tinggal di bumi yang sama, tinggal di satu bumi, maka dengan sendirinya kita juga akan kena akibatnya begitu.
Greenhouse gas emissions are rising. The impacts of these increased emissions are not just local, but they affect the whole world. The more emissions there are, the more the climate changes. Normally, the sun's rays bounce off the Earth and go back into space. This makes the Earth warm enough for life. Now, with all the extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, some of the sun's rays are getting trapped. This is called the greenhouse effect. As a result, the temperature is rising. Droughts are becoming more severe. The snow and ice at the poles and high mountain regions are melting, causing sea levels to rise. Extreme storms and flooding are becoming more common. The Earth's climate is changing. The last 10 years have been the hottest years on record on this planet. Since the 1970s, the area of land on Earth that suffers from severe drought has doubled.
Over the last 10 years, there have been strong impacts on wells. The flow of water has gone down, and many wells have dried up completely, especially in what is classified as state forest land.
In 2005 and again in 2010, the Brazilian Amazon experienced very unusual droughts. Wide rivers ran to a trickle, boats became stranded, and thousands of animals and fish died.
First I saw that the water was already coming up to our house. I thought the water level was higher than usual. So my husband said, take the children, take anything you can and run. 10 minutes later I was out of the house, and then with my own eyes I saw my husband being swept away by the water, together with our house.
Nah, dengan perubahan tiap tahun itu dia berubah. Jadi airnya naik itu.
Every year these changes are happening. The water is rising. This village was over there in the middle of the water. The mosque was over there about 50 meters away back in around 1984. And every year we are experiencing more erosion of the beach.
Tahun demi tahun itu mengalami ini. Erosi ini.
Laut semakin melebar, tempat tinggal semakin sempit.
The sea has become ever wider, the area for living ever narrower. Trees on the shore have already gone, it has all become sea. In the village of Caracas, people's homes have disappeared, all destroyed by storms.
Low-lying areas around the world are particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels. Many of the world's poorest and most populated cities are already experiencing frequent floods and high tides.
We are all watching the houses slide down, and then this part of the mountain collapsed. One of my daughters was shouting, and then I shouted, "Go upstairs to get the children!" Our farms were destroyed, and all of us are bankrupt.
Water came gushing from under the ground. Then the trees and the soil lifted and flowed down the mountain at the same time. It was because of the very strong rain. We were just not prepared for this.
Droughts, floods and typhoons have always happened, but climate change is making the climate more unstable, and these disasters are becoming more frequent. In the process of extracting and using these resources, huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are emitted into the atmosphere. The lifestyle which has been developed over the last 100 years depends entirely on the raw materials from extractive industries. For food, transport, housing, all the products rely on the resources taken from the earth.
It is us who live addicted to this fossil carbon. It is the modern human beings, us who travel the planet, who go in cars, who live in cities. We are addicted. We cannot live without this drug. who are willing to sacrifice ourselves, sacrifice our children, sacrifice our future for this drug.
Hemos vivido miles de años.
We indigenous peoples have lived for thousands of years here in the Amazon, but we have not destabilized the planet's climate. This is not intended as a criticism to the European people or to industrialized society, but his knowledge, his industry, his technology have contributed to more conflict and climate instability. This means that the concept of development is very badly defined.
Que está muy mal definido el concepto de desarrollo.
For over 100 years, industrialized nations such as the US, UK and Japan have been responsible for a major part of emissions that contribute to climate change. Now this high-energy, high-consumerism model of development is being copied in most developing countries in Asia, Latin America and Africa.
El problema es que también ellos están en crisis. Es por eso que se ven
They are in
obligados,
crisis because we have created an artificial world that depends on a lot of energy. A comfortable world that doesn't want to walk, that wants everything to be electronic, which means using energy. So it is this human comfort which allows this situation to exist.
Entonces es la comodidad del hombre la que también permite que exista eso.
Urban people, rich people, buy more and more products and quickly throw them away.
The main cause of all this is the greed of humans. The key here is greed. There is a saying which says, if we gave all of the resources in nature to one greedy person, it still wouldn't be enough. There is a belief that nature is only there to provide for humans, and this belief is the underlying reason as to why humans are exploiting the earth for their own advantage on such a large scale.
Dimanfaatkan secara besar-besaran oleh manusia itu sendiri.
Masyarakat adat itu kan masih hidup dengan
Indigenous peoples still live in an economic system which releases little carbon.
melepaskan karbon hanya sedikit.
So indigenous communities can continue with their low-carbon economies. But it is the global economy that releases so much carbon which needs to reduce its emissions.
Besar ini juga harus menurunkan.
If the power of nature is unleashed, nobody will stop it.
Let us lower the fever. If we don't lower the fever, we will die.
The world is heating up. The world is in danger. The entire strategic resources of the world are getting used up. Man is not thinking about how to solve this. Man is accumulating more and more power and is always going faster. He will come to an end, but we do not want the end to come. We want to maintain the world. We want it to survive thousands and thousands of years.
Queremos que sobreviva miles de años. Tenemos que volver.
We have to find the essence of life again. We must value life more than the accumulation of wealth.